Hello, everyone. Hope that you've had a great February so far. I'm here with another of our Carbon Collective News video digests. So in this digest, we're going to go through 3 articles, two of them about electric vehicles, and then one about how to spot propaganda from fossil fuels. So the first is really interesting. The New York Times took a look at what is the overall cost of owning an electric car versus a hybrid, versus a diesel car, versus a gas car, and how does that compare to the emissions that they generate. And overall, the long and the short of it is that they found in general, electric cars are actually cheaper to own than gas cars. And this includes the upfront price of the car, which we know is much higher right now for electric cars, and the depreciation, the maintenance, fuel, everything that goes into the total cost of ownership for a car. So if we look over here, we can actually see that the Nissan Leaf is all the way over here in the corner in terms of one of the lowest cost cars in terms of cost per month. So we can see here on the x-axis, and also with one of the lowest emissions. Now, you're probably asking yourself, these are electric cars. Why do they have any emissions? So this is assuming the standard US grid mix, which today still has a heavy amount of fossil fuels. So if your electric car was running off of your home solar system or 100% renewable energy that you bought from the grid, these emissions would be considerably lower. So why is this exciting? This is exciting because we are only going to solve climate change once the climate-friendly choice, like going electric, is just the financially smarter thing to do. And right now, we're getting close. If you have the cash to pay for an electric car up front, it just now makes economic sense to get an electric car, most of them over a gas car. And that trend is only going to continue. And we are going to see, hopefully in the next 5 years, that upfront price of electric cars will fall dramatically as well. So that overall, it is a clear, just no-brainer to do. So if you are considering getting a new car and you like having more money at the end of the month than you started out with, go electric. They're way easier to maintain. There are far fewer moving parts. They're more fun to drive. It's lower fuel costs, and it's much better for our climate. So that's article number 1. Article number 2 is on the same subject. So we all know this gentleman over here. This vehicle is called the Grumman LLV. I didn't know that. And it gets 10 miles per gallon. It is, despite not being that big, these things are gas guzzlers. And so not only does that mean for us as taxpayers that for the 25 years, which is the average lifespan of one of these, that we're paying for that terrible mileage with our tax dollars, but it's also the very high carbon emissions. So the U.S. Postal Service had been planning to replace these, and with the Biden administration coming in, they said, no, all of your replacements have to be electric. This is exciting because, A, it means that you and I as Americans are the carbon footprint of our federal government will go down because of this action, which is big. And 2, this is a really big purchase. It's a great way for the federal government to use its power to move industrial supply chains. How many more batteries are going to need to be produced because of this? And how many companies are going to be seeing this, the writing on the wall that the future of vehicles is electric, so you better start investing it now, which will just accelerate that process even faster. So I know I personally am really excited for the day when I see coming down my street the electric postal truck. I won't be able to hear it because it'll probably be very silent. Okay, final article number 3. So this is a piece in Vox where they went and interviewed a researcher who has studied, her name is Guinevere Gunther, who has studied how the fossil fuel industry combats climate legislation. So the Biden administration has laid out some parts of pretty ambitious climate legislation. They're doing a lot of other really cool things just on the executive side. What stood out to me here and us here is that fossil fuel companies are really good at fighting this. They have got it down to a science. And we've seen the evidence of this even, in liberal states like Washington when they tried to pass the carbon tax and dividend, which was going to be neutral for most families. And it got defeated because the fossil fuel lobby pumped a bunch of money into it. I personally am susceptible to these things. And the reason is because fossil fuel talking points, they all have a grain of truth in them. That's their strategy. And so there's three things that are kind of like main theses that they try to convince you of, and they'll use lots of different evidence to try and make these points. And so I know for myself, it's actually really helpful to know, like, okay, this is the fossil fuel company trying to make this point. So the first point is that they want to make people believe that climate action will hurt them and hurt their pocketbooks in particular. So this is that, the price at the pump will rise. We often hear this in kind of a more dramatized way with the cost of heating oil, like in the Northeast. And like, you're not going to want to let families go cold or have to pay a lot, there's a grain of truth in that. Like that is correct. We don't want to let families go cold. But it's creating a zero-sum game where there's not one. It's not binary. There's lots of options within it. So that's the first strategy, just saying it's going to hurt you, it's going to hurt your wallet. The second is make people think we need fossil fuels. So this is kind of more of a macro of being like, hey, this is the status quo of how the world works. Why would we challenge that? Like, turn on your stove. Like, that's fossil fuels right there. You need this to, cook at your home. So that's the next point, that just like we need fossil fuels as a society, which we clearly don't. But just keep an eye out for that, because it's, again, we're all susceptible to it. And the final thing is that try and convince us that climate change isn't such a big deal. I am personally susceptible to things like this because a part of me doesn't want it to be such a big deal, because it is terrifying. And so they're taking that drive for us to want to protect ourselves, to believe that this mess that we're in isn't true, or is less true, or is overblown, because that's, it's a much safer, emotionally safer place to be in. And so they'll, kind of make arguments of how we are small on this very large planet, and how could we possibly be impacting the entire global system. So it's important for all of us to kind of prepare ourselves for what these arguments are going to be, because it's the best way that we're going to be able to pass the truly comprehensive and grand climate legislation that we need. So that's all for this week. Really 3 great articles. I suggest you read them. If you have any questions about them or comments, I would love to hear. We will share more about what's going on here at Carbon Collective in the next newsletter. But for now, we just wanted to share these with you. Have a great next few weeks.